Good evening. Welcome to the April 6th RSU 14 Board of Directors meeting. We are in the Windham Town Council chambers and it is 6:33. Could I have a roll call, Mr. Superintendent?
You sure can. Kate Britz. Eric Colby. Jennifer Fleck.
Here.
Diana Forslin.
Here.
Marge Cavoni.
Here.
Pete Hensler. Here. Jen Moore. Here. Don Dillon.
Here.
Jerry Keene Dwyer.
Here.
Sierra Yost.
Okay, if you will join me in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, we have no adjustments to the agenda this evening. So I will open it to public input. If anyone of the public has something they would like to discuss that is not on the agenda, you may come up. Okay, seeing nobody, I will close public input. First on our agenda is the public forum portion of our 2016-17 budget discussion. And this is the time when, if there's anyone from the public who wants to share their thoughts regarding the proposed budget, now is the time to do it. If so, you can come to the podium. Come to the podium and state your name and where you live.
My name is Eric Tremblay. I'm the computer.
Do it now. That you have to speak into the mic.
Okay, my name is Eric Tremblay. I'm the computer technology teacher at the Windham Middle School. And I would like to ask if the board had a chance to review the letter that I submitted concerning the cutting of that curriculum, as well as the input, the letter from the high school, and if they understand the ramifications of this process. I'd also like to know, secondly, in delivering the proficiencies for our students, because nothing is delivered in the primary school nor the high school, and I've always been chartered to do that within that 3-year window. How will these students get that technology training, that competency, to get them from high school, college, and further on in life through the private sector?
Is that it?
That is it.
Okay. Thank you. We did receive the letter, and I'm sure the second part of it will be answered a little bit later on, because there are I think some conversations from some of the folks that are here. Okay, thank you. Is there anyone else from the public who wants to speak on the budget at the moment? Okay, seeing nobody, I will close the public participation, and I will open it up to board discussion on the budget. And this is a continuation of the meeting we had last week on the discussion, and so if our administrators could bring us up to.
So board members, I know you received quite a bit of information this week, and hopefully you were able to digest at least most of that. We invited the administrative team here tonight to also answer any questions that you might have that need to be answered tonight. Don and I thought that maybe the two big areas that you would want to focus on to start is the real school and then look at technology. So unless there's disagreement with that, may I suggest we look at the real school and go from there?
Yeah. Okay. Through the book. Oops. I would also like to suggest, if the board is in agreement, that any of the items that are pertinent to the real school but not necessarily will have an impact for this budget season, or it's basically almost too late, that we can bring them up and they can make note of it. And as an example, we had a discussion last time about, are we going to renew the lease there? And, is there other places we could put them? Which actually is not going to have anything to do with this budget at this time, only because I don't think we're going to be able to react to that quickly to be able to make that decision, even if we could find a place. I know that takes time. So if there are those type of items, if we could make sure that we ask those questions and give that to the administration so we can bring it up at another time after we go through the budget discussion. So if it's not going to directly impact this budget. I mean, they're good points, and we do want to further discuss them, but I don't think we're going to be able to come to a conclusion on them during this budget season. You're looking at me blank. Is somebody? Oh, yes.
Given the dramatic change for this program, which I wholeheartedly support, I think it would be a disservice to our students to even consider any kind of change other than what is being proposed in this budget. We want to do it right if there are any changes, and so I would like to give them the gift of time, and so I support this budget.
So is the only change between the new pink sheet and the old pink sheet the healthcare changes that we learned about?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay.
Yep.
Thank you.
Does anybody else? Go ahead, Cindy.
This week we talked to Martin, who's our director of the real school, and he felt that we could push it up to 30 students. That we had talked last week about the alternative ed program being 20 to 22. He said with the current staff that's proposed, we could take up to 30 students. So I think it's not a perfect number because you could have 28 students in that program and you might feel like you're maxed, given that 28 students, that the population could be pretty intense. But generally speaking, I think it's fair to say that he felt that they could go up to 30 students. So it gives us a little more wiggle room, and it also, if you have 30 students in there and you had to send those students out of district, that could be $35,000, $40,000 per student. So it just kind of gives it in perspective, the affordability of this program. I think having 30 students sits a little bit better with people.
Is a lot of this gauged on the fact, I know they've got quite a large AmeriCorps staff there. Does that also help support being able to do more than what it was originally discussed, which was the 2022 students?
I think that's a really good point, and the answer to that is yes. We're learning a lot more about that, and there are a number of EdTech 3s that could support the program, and I'm just now realizing I didn't answer correctly because we did reduce the support person by a half in the second proposal. I forgot about that. Sorry.
I do have a comment if nobody else does. I know at the last meeting we had discussed the per pupil cost, and I know you have been informed why that is, but as only Mrs. Brooks can, I have back to, even I'm laughing, a couple of years, the per pupil cost. And the per pupil cost for the proposed year is very much in line with past years. So even though there have been changes, dramatic changes to this program, the per pupil cost is not hugely out of line with what we had paid in the past.
So I don't want to move on. Is there any other questions on the real school piece of it? Jerry, go ahead.
Are they going? The answer here. Are they going back to? I mean, do we know where they're going to be? Is that set, or is that still an unknown?
It's still an unknown.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay. So that's
We're working.
So the placeholder is.
We have an opportunity clearly to stay on Mackworth, and frankly, we're looking at places within the Wyndham-Raymond.
Okay. So that's not done. It's a possibility. I think last week I wasn't even sure that was something that was going to be
explored.
Okay.
Okay. Eric?
So I wasn't here, and I apologize, but I just wanted to make sure I got it understood. So the Katahdin is the program that's continuing.
Correct.
Costco's going away.
Correct.
But we have a change from the 355 to 490 for the Casco, and that was because it went from proposed at 376 to version 5, which was 490.
May I
Yeah, please.
respond? That's correct in terms of the 490, 795 as attributed to what is the real school, the expeditionary-based alternative school. However, as Jerry pointed out last week, there are other expenses, which is we've moved the special educator into special services within the district
Transfer some people over.
because it allows us a higher subsidy rate from the state. That's almost 78,000. And in addition to that, the transportation costs are just about 148,000, which is in transportation in the operating budget, because again, there's a subsidy benefit for that.
Okay.
So the total program is over 700,000.
Are we all? Is there any other questions on the real school? Okay, so we're all set for the real school. I have so many papers here. What was on? What was the next thing on the list?
Technology?
Technology.
It was just technology.
Oh, on the
Just-
list.
No, I didn't mean that. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Believe me, I don't make light of that one.
Technology,
But is there?
primary school, GT, gifted and talented, there's a question about that. And then summer anytime learning about
Okay. And so those have been taken. Oh, wait a minute.
I thought the
High school was-
summer.
That's been reduced.
That's been
Yes. However, the GT is not.
Well, that's fine. But can I get clarification from Kyle? I just want clarification on. It's really not a gifted and talented program, like we perceive. If you could come on,
Sorry.
So
as we perceive it normally, like when they get to middle school.
correct.
and-
It's not a program in the sense of a 45-minute, hour-long class. At that maybe something happens at other schools. This would be as you know, in my original budget, I had proposed full time for the gifted and talented teacher. So we're really looking at trying to enrich the learning and serve more students as well, because we've got a lot of students who fit into that. If you look at the standardized test scores, fit into that top quarter of the students, and those are students that you really got to try to reach and extend. And so that would allow us to start doing that more often.
I didn't want people to think, because it's a precursor. It's a precursor to students going into, well, they have it at Manchester and at the middle school.
Right.
And up at Jordan Small. I just wanted folks to know that it's not the same type of teaching. It's not a class, and it's a little bit different.
Correct.
And that was it. I just wanted clarification. That was just clarification.
Yeah.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Yep.
Okay. Okay. So I guess we are at technology, unless somebody else has something else in between. Okay, great. Let's just go straight to technology then.
Now you're good.
You were always important.
Well, thank you all.
And at some point, and I don't know if we want to do it before we get to this piece, but I'd really like to go over, and I don't know if the rest of the board agrees, but I'd like to go over that piece of, and I think Kate originally brought it up before. It's like, well, where is it going to come from? I mean, we are eliminating that computer class. Where is the basis coming from that the kids are going to have computer
I'm
proficiency?
confused. Are we talking about technology or the technology teacher? I'm just confused what we're talking about now.
No, the class, the The
Right,
yes,
that's- is that-
technology
is that in-
instruction,
is that
which
in-
is really not really to his yet. It's
That's right.
a I just wanted, we kind of left, last week we kind of left it there and said we'd talk about that piece.
Okay.
And so I wanted to really put that.
Would you like to deal with that now?
Yes,
Okay,
if
sure.
nobody minds. Before we get into the technology, piece of it could be pretty lengthy. And it might also include, because I would be, personally, I myself would also like to hear from Danielle too, because I know there is a computer class at the Manchester School, a formal computer class.
There was.
Oh, there isn't now?
We disbanded our computer labs.
Oh, I'm
when we
sorry.
had one-to-one.
Okay. Drew.
I might join you because it might go. Okay.
Sure.
Side chick.
Just so I can better understand, what would be helpful to the board in terms of answering that question? Is it just where those skills that are currently being taught would be picked up?
Mhm.
Okay. So just to kind of familiarize everyone with comparing what Wyndham Middle School offers and also what Raymond offers is,
I'm sorry, not to interrupt 1 second, but Randy, could you? Sorry. Also come up. Yeah, well, never too crowded.
In the middle.
there you go.
It's one between two roses.
Something like that, yeah.
So my understanding is Randy has an applied tech class at the middle school in Raymond. We have the comparison to that would be STEM class. The difference between the two of them is that in his applied tech, keyboarding is offered. So none of the other pieces that are currently taken care of in terms of the middle school technology position are incorporated into the applied tech class, from my understanding. So that would lead me to believe, and Randy's here to hopefully support that those other skills in terms of word processing, databases, graphing, those particular pieces, internet search skills are picked up through the other content areas within the school. That's my understanding of how that works. So just making sure that.
Yeah, I mean that's correct. So we have trying to be more integrated with technology since MLTI started, which I think is 14 years ago, something like that. Way back we had computer class. That was quite a while ago, and since it's been a one-to-one environment, I mean technology is in every classroom for different applications, music, art, you name it. So when the industrial tech program was instituted at Jordan Small, we also looked at were there gaps with technology in terms of computer skills, and made sure we were at that time trying to be in sync with Wyndham Middle, which had both classes going. So it's been an ongoing evolution of both of those programs, and I mean computers are throughout the schools now, and it's not quite the same as it was 10 or 15 years ago. So Drew's capturing of it is accurate. We have fifth graders, remember, at JSMS too. So they have a little bit of computer instruction time with the tech teacher. But other than that, we try to keep the two curriculums very similar.
So I have no doubt in terms of the computer technology program that's serving to address many computer technology standards. But I guess my argument for that is that those standards are also being picked up, embedded through the other teachings that are happening within the school. So in terms of looking at next year, and if that were to go through, we look at where do we pick up keyboarding. The students that are at Jordan Small, those students, not everybody has keyboarding. My understanding is once they reach a particular proficiency level in keyboarding, they're not asked to pick that up again. So if we were looking to mirror the programs, I'd be asking STEM teachers to pick up keyboarding, but it could certainly be picked up in other places as well. So if we're purely looking at sort of an equity or a comparison of the two programs, that would match the two programs up. I think the question that came up before, and the reason that Christina is also here, is the board's question about where those standards picked up K through 12. And I think it's a good question, and I think a plan that we have to address in terms of where those taught, how can we show evidence that they're being taught, and are there any gaps along the way to make sure that when students hit high school, they've hit what the board and the administrators and teachers consider to be the most relevant technology standards.
Good.
Thanks. My concern is how do we quantify that? How do we verify that that's been? And I know you said it, but how do we verify it? Because just recently I was reaching out about Kirsten. I was just speaking to Mr. Howell, and nobody knows where it went or why it went. So my concern would be, how do we verify that? I believe you, but how would I verify that?
Can I answer that?
Sure.
Hi. So that's a great question. And so what my role is to look at the existing tech standards. We have tech standards for students for K through 12. They were developed the first year that I was here. They are in your current tech plan. So I am taking the 67-page document as we speak. It's here right now. I was just typing in the back. To condense it down as the standards we need to cover and writing them as performance indicators, which we have done with all the aligned curriculum. And so that we can score those easily into Jump Rope or Infinite Campus, whatever platform that people are in, and they can show us evidence that students have met those proficiencies in the standards that have been outlined. We're also doing an update because, as you can even imagine, 3 years ago, some of the evidence students could do to show that proficiency has changed dramatically. So I'm working with Amy Denneker and Natalie Scorbin at the high school because they are the infotech people, and we are adjusting, and it needs to be a process where we're looking at it constantly to make sure we are using pieces of evidence that are up to date and what we have for the hardware that we can show proficiency in.
Christine,
yeah.
sorry to interrupt. Can you just give us a few examples outside of keyboarding, like what some of the standards are?
I'm going to read the one I have right here, Pete. So one of the technology standards is digital citizenship. And the standard is that students demonstrate a clear understanding of technology systems and operations and practices safety, legal, and ethical behavior. That's a big one, okay? So for grades 3, 4, and 5, the way that we are going to collect evidence under these performance indicators, they need to show us that they demonstrate safe, legal, and ethical behavior, okay? Practice ethical and respectful behavior, develop skills to use technology effectively, use a variety of hardware to support learning, select and use common applications, and select and use software for learning. So under each of those performance indicators, Pete, my role to do is to take, those are for grades 3, 4, and 5, but under grade 3, there'll be like a little hyperlink. You can click and it'll give staff an opportunity to say, here are some things you can do that would fall under evidence for that piece of performance indicator, which then bubbles up to the standard. So I'm doing the framework, and then what I do typically with staff is to gather staff together, K through 12, and say, what are the things we're currently doing? What are the things that we feel are doable in our everyday classrooms that we can go along the way and certify that students are doing these things? When I have shared this with some of the staff, they're like, oh yeah, we already do that, we do that, we do that. We need to formalize it. And I understand you need some accountability to know these things are happening K through 12 in the RSU. So as soon as I get the scaffolded out, I will share it with you. But that's what it will look like. There's digital citizenship. Another standard, Pete, would be collaboration, using digital media to collaborate. We can do that actually K through 12 because you've been generous in your technology pieces. Another standard is to investigate and think critically using technology. Again, practice safety. There's some operation system pieces we want kids to know, and also how to select and use applications. And so ones that are developmentally appropriate that scaffold each other up the grade spans and actually certify it in our grading and reporting. So.
Are those stuff we're developing as a district, or are they state standards?
No, these are ones we've developed from the district, but I believe Mr. Hickey had to pass them in when he had to do his tech plan for the district. They were adopted by the state 3 years ago. So what I'm doing is kind of taking the 67 pages, which can be overwhelming, and condensing it down into the format that we have been doing all of the curriculum work with. So again, it's not an overwhelming piece for staff as well. I think that's another concern I have is what are we doing? And we can always go over and above these things, but what are the minimum pieces we have expectations that students will have in every classroom?
Will it be ready for 2017?
Yes. Yes, I will have the scaffolding done, and it's already on the docket to be done this summer for you.
But all the way passed down to the teachers and
Yep.
material.
Yep. So I will have a team together, and I have people that we already have some amazing examples already done, and there's a lot of sharing going on with technology. Even just being at the high school yesterday, working with students, the way that they're using different, Google Classroom, and they're doing assignments like this. There's different things flying around. We just need to organize and see where there's area we need to provide support. Yeah. So, yeah.
Eric, too, if I could just add to the point that you had brought up in terms of, I think when those standards are embedded in the curriculum, I think it does. You always ask the question, where is that taught? But I don't think that was a problem that didn't exist prior to me bringing up the proposal. Meaning that I think that would still be a question. I can't imagine that it's solely the responsibility of 6th, 7th, and 8th grade teachers to work on a K-12 span when it comes to the number of technology standards that are there. Some of the pieces that I had communicated to the board in terms of other changes I'm looking at next year, in terms of working with the librarian on the digital citizenship curriculum, which I had emailed you a copy of that. But a lot of these pieces in here really echo the standards that Christine was just talking about, in terms of looking at the students' digital life, their footprint. Another unit for 6th grade, online etiquette and citizenship, and these are all really, I think, critical pieces, especially for our students, where platforms for communication change very, very regularly. Now, if you're on Facebook, you're old, and they'll tell you that, and it's become a thing of the past for them. So there's always, for us, trying to stay on top of their methods of communication and how they do that. So another part of my proposal would be to try to add that curriculum at a younger age when they're being more exposed to those things, and especially where parents in middle school, many of them are starting to think about giving kids devices or have given kids devices in terms of communication. And speaking to, I don't know about all of you, but 6th, 7th, 8th grade is where you start thinking about, do they get a phone, or how much time do I allow them on the computer? What sort of, do I allow them to have a Facebook page or a Twitter account or whatever that may be? So that's the hope too, that to benefit kids is to increase that curriculum through the librarian at the school. Have her working with students at a younger age, so that they can learn many of these skill sets prior to becoming a little bit older, where maybe it might be harder to reshape some of their thought patterns about that.
You're saying Danielle, no, I get it. Thank you.
Christine, are there computer electives in the high school computer classes?
Chris?
He's shaking. He's not.
Yes.
There are, what are some of those? Because, and this is a blend of the technology issue and the computer proficiency issue. My concern or my question is, the proposal to add devices, they're all Apple based, and I'm not sure what's offered in terms of Windows based computer courses within the district. So if we go into all Apple devices and we don't have a dedicated computer technology class, where are our students getting exposure to Windows based applications, programming, technology?
Can I answer? There is one Windows-based lab that's left in the high school that actually we share with Adult Ed. It's located up on the 2nd floor. And as you may or may not know, Wyndham High School was actually built with 4 computer labs when it was constructed. And the labs have been slowly deconstructed as machines have kind of fallen apart, and the investments have been made into actually going to a one-on-one. We do offer some classes on the Windows-based platform. And in those website classes and college communication classes, students have a choice whether or not they want to use their Windows machine that they have available to them in the lab, or they're also welcome to use the Mac that's there. We also offer some classes in computer programming. For the most part, students are using their Macs to perform those functions. And then we also have some electives that highlight some of the functions on here for creativity tools, such as the photography suite, GarageBand, and some of the other development tools that are available that are on that. But we do have that one lab that's left over out of the original 4 when the Wyndham High School was built back in 03-04.
All right, thanks. Because we've mentioned it before, and a lot of the corporate world still uses Windows-based things, and I want to make sure that our students are prepared and have access.
Pete, if I could also add too, just I have a MacBook, but in terms of many of it's not a Windows-based operating system. I have many of the Windows-based, like Microsoft Office suite. That's run from there. Also, the ability for me to access VDI, which is a Windows-based platform, through that machine, which our students also have access to. So even though the device is maybe an Apple-based device, there are a lot of, I think, traditional PC components that are still able to be accessed.
All right, thank you.
I got a question for Sierra. You use Mac? Does your dad have?
Before we get into the technology piece, which is the machines or whatever, I want to finish the middle school computer class thing. So make note. Okay. Are there any more questions or anything pertaining to the?
Should we hear from Mr. Tremblay? Mr. Tremblay.
We already had public comment.
Yeah. We all set with? Oh, no, stay right there. Are we all set? Before you leave, I want to make sure there's not another question. Are we okay with? Are we comfortable? I guess does everybody feel they have their answers? That what is that right? Go ahead, Jerry.
My question: they only standalone computer course. Is this one teacher or classes? Is this one area in the whole school, basically? In the whole system. There's no sort of standalone teachers doing computer technology, except maybe specialized high school. But in terms of at least K to 8, it's really very much taking an integrative approach as opposed to standalone. Okay. So I just want to kind of clarify. Thanks.
Okay. Are we all set? Everybody comfortable? Okay, great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Very much. Please don't go far. Because now we're going to get into the technology piece, Mr. Hickey.
Great, thank you very much.
Well, I guess, do we have new papers for? I can't go. Mine are all in a bundle here. Do you want to bring us up to snuff on anything that's come about and from the last time?
Sure, I'd be happy to. And I'm going to pass around. There's no secrets here. You've already gotten the proposal for the HPs. That's the middle. And then I've got my comments at the beginning and end of this. And then this is a new sheet I didn't think of drafting until this afternoon, or I would have gotten you that earlier as well. And that is a comparison, and I guess we'll hold that to the end. But new news to us, and I'm sorry that we didn't have this news 2 weeks ago when I was before you. The state has come forth with the refresh, but they have made it a mandatory refresh for grades 7 and 8 across the state. So if you've got iPads or MacBook Airs in 7 and 8, you have to upgrade, and that is this June, which ends year 3 of the 4-year contract. They're forcing a year early upgrade. And this has direct play into our discussion from a couple weeks ago on our frustration that the devices are not available for purchase, and they're still not available for purchase under this condition. And what I'm understanding is that the state is using the residual value of those devices to offset some of their final lease payments to help cost justify and enact the upgrade. So it hurts the schools locally, not just our district, but across the state, that we were able to get devices for $48 a piece. That's no longer available. So that part is a downside of an early upgrade. And there's a lot of discussion across the state. We're not the only ones who feel that way. So what does this mean for an early upgrade? If you are an iPad school for 7-8 and you choose to stay iPad, you'll get a better, faster iPad. And if you are a MacBook Air, you can choose to stay with that. Now, we are in the position, as are other schools, that we are iPad 7-8, but we are allowed to upgrade to MacBook Airs for no local cost. It's like $253 per year was the 4-year contract we're in. They kind of kept the money the same. The iPads are coming in around $217 a year, so that's clearly below the $253. And the MacBook Airs are coming in around $248, so they're saying it's still less than a $253. If you want to upgrade to that device, then you can. And I'm blessed with support from all the administrators. They can jump in at any time they would like to contribute. So it is our being the A-team's position that we would like to move 7th and 8th grade to MacBook Airs to put the keyboards back in those grades. And then this helps, I hope, to clear up some of the confusion from a couple of weeks ago about why we're shooting for MacBook Airs for 6th grade. If the board and the public supports this, will be MacBook Airs grades 6 through 12. And to have everybody on the same platform, there's a lot of advantages to that. There's not, data conversion and retraining and professional development. So that makes a lot of sense to us. They go back and forth. The state's very confusing. When they first made this announcement, they said, see our frequently asked questions section, which was blank for days. I've heard both back and forth. We will have to turn in the existing Apple TVs, and we will not. So I don't bet on where the state is. I'm going to wait and see what the official answer is. I know that among the upgrade, there are new Apple TVs destined for 7th and 8th grade, Milty. So if we're able to keep those, we will. Chairman Gavoni asked me about the keyboards that we got with the original iPads that we're on now. For every 7 devices, we got a keyboard. And if we end up getting iPads for the lower grades, those would come in very handy and save the district money. It's a great idea. I wish I'd have thought of it. I've asked the state, still don't have a resolution on that yet, so I will share that when they get back with that. Not sure what's going on. They did mention 1-to-7 ratio for the new iPads for schools that have those, so I'm not sure. Just dashed off some of these prices, and I know that Sandy's forwarded this information onto you. It's no new information. Surprisingly, the HP primary, which is a HP ProBook, you can see that there, is more expensive than either of the Mac options. And their tablet device on the next page is even more expensive than that. Now, I get it a lot when folks sit home, they see a flyer from Best Buy or whatever, and they go, I can get a laptop for $300. Why am I looking at a $1,000 laptop with you? And the laptops that you see on special, a lot of times they're discontinued models. There'll be a warranty, and it may be a year warranty. It's limited warranty. So there's a lot that's not covered on it. So by the time you get into the state program with what they consider more of a middle-of-the-road or business class model, it's not a consumer model, a hardier warranty, the professional development, the software that comes with it, and the wireless network. That's why we're spending $1,000 at school, and you can see them for $250 to $350 at home. I hope that answers that question, and I'm happy to deal with more. I included this, Pete. This is software on the Windows side that if you go through MLTI Windows, this is what they offer on the Windows side. I mean, I've mentioned to you for years kind of what's available on the Apple side. I didn't want to be redundant. We all pretty know there's a lot of apps and educational things, and if you want more data on that, I'm happy to forward that. But this is kind of the side of the coin that you've never had a chance to see. What do you get if you get a PC? And these are those software titles. There's some educational stuff, some Office Automation Suite. They offer, which Apple doesn't, it's a classroom. I can't remember what it's called, but it's an online classroom. But since we already have that through Virtual High School, Google Classroom, Moodle, and a little bit of Edmodo, I'm not sure we're missing by not having that version. So there's that. And then this last sheet that's colored, I didn't think of this comparison until this afternoon. It's like I'm throwing a lot of prices and options and configurations at you. You can see that the MacBook Air is only $217 the first of 4 years for the upcoming 4 years. And that's not at 7-8. That's state money covered. But if we were to go with it for, say, 6th grade, that's the price. And then the price goes up. Well, I think that's inaccurate, I think. I'm sorry. I copied and it added $1. It should be $248 for each of the successive 3 years. So I apologize for the math mistake there. I didn't notice I did it at the time. So it's $217 first year, $248 every year after that. iPads, $217 every year of the 4 years. And then those are the correct pricing on the HPs, and they're considerably larger. So in the green, I compared what do you get if you get MacBook Airs over iPads. There's a $25,000 offset, which at roughly 250-ish students, it's roughly $100 per device difference. That it would be cheaper if you went the iPad, but then you have to consider the professional development and, fragmenting your hardware inventory. And then the cost of the HP ProBooks over MacBook Airs is $14,500. And cost of an Elite Pad, which is the Microsoft Touch device, and that's considerable. It's almost $75,000. Yes.
Is this the cost for the 11-inch?
Yes. When I gave you pricing 2 weeks ago, it's all Apple had given me, and they were 13-inch devices.
Okay.
And whenever you convert into MLTI, automatically it drops the student device to an 11-inch, so there's no way to forget that part.
Okay.
I know that Don had forwarded you the difference between the 13-inch pricing I'd had 2 weeks ago and the 11-inch for student, 13-inch for student MLTI, and that came in around $33,000. And that's not on this sheet, but I know you have that data. So.
Bob, can you just refresh my memory? What are the 6th graders, what are they currently using for devices?
Yes, they're using the $48 MacBooks that are like 7 years old, and they're not only in 6th grade, they're spread throughout the district. We bought 1,300 of them a few years ago, and we use them for testing, and the batteries are abysmal. I know I had helped out Manchester the last couple of weeks, as had Kirby in my department, and it's heartbreaking to watch them have to drag the kids around the edge of the room to plug in because the batteries will not get them through the test. So even the ones that are still working and slow, the batteries are dying. And we can get new batteries, but they're $50 a piece for a machine we paid $48 for. And even if we bought those, and we'd have to buy a lot of them. It's not just like 1 or 2 classes having issues. It's huge money for a very old machine.
And so the mandatory refresh from the state, that's for 7th and 8th grade, regardless of what condition their devices are in. What happens to the devices that the 7th and 8th graders are currently using when that refresh happens?
They go back to Apple, and Apple probably resells them.
So we don't keep those.
The iPads?
The iPads that the 7th and 8th graders.
Yeah, no, they have to go back. That's the early buyout. They're going to sell those and help offset part of the last year contractual payments.
All right, thank you.
Yep.
They used to give us the option of buying $48.
Yeah, then give those in the 6th graders.
And Pete, I know you and Eric have both brought up the Windows, and as Drew has mentioned briefly, there is VDI, Virtual Desktop Interface, and we do have that if Mrs. Hessler chooses to focus on Windows-based things within the curriculum. We can accommodate up to 250 seats, 250 concurrent users through that, throughout the district. And so if we want to expose students to the Windows platform, we don't actually have to buy the hardware. We already have the licensing for that.
Good.
It can run in a browser window, and it can run on anything, a smartphone. So.
All right, thank you.
Yep.
Well, why don't we kind of stay on let's stay on the 6th grade first.
Okay.
Before we go, so we can kind of take one chunk, one bite at a time, and then we'll go down to the elementary schools. So if there's Carrie, you feel like you have a question.
Well, so this over 4 years, it's 263 devices per year.
263 devices for 6th grade. When we originally were talking about how many devices we need to accommodate 6th grade, we kind of rounded it out to 250, but by the time we take anticipated enrollment as grade shift and then supporting staff, there's a few devices over, brought us from 250 to 263.
And this will cover both schools.
Yes.
Mark?
Oh, sorry, yes. Joe.
So I know we're talking about 6th grade, but 7th and 8th kind of plays into the conversation, I think. So I think it's the fact that they're making us do a mandatory refresh, just one of those not fair. Like you said, it doesn't make sense. But silver lining, I think it's great, the recommendation to go to MacBook Airs for 7th and 8th, because I've seen, my own student suffer through with a iPad in those grades, trying to write on an iPad. Just, I think they'd be a lot better served with the laptops. So I agree with that. And then that helps with the 6th grade recommendation, like you said, keeping it consistent throughout the grade. So I'm supportive of that plan.
Great. Thank you very much.
And the refresh for the 7th and 8th graders has no impact on the budget, right?
None.
Yeah.
Jen, might as well just, while we're going, might as well just keep going this way.
Support 100%.
I do too.
I definitely do, and just the feedback from some of you folks was very helpful to know, how it actually is in the classroom. I hear from my own students as well, but that maybe the iPads were not such a great thing after all. So I'm in favor.
Excellent. Thank you.
Jerry?
So this is a $253,000 in this year's budget, or over 4 years. I did miss this discussion. I'm sorry, I had to be out of town.
This is over 4 years, so it would be a lease payment of roughly 1/4 that.
Okay. So it's the 57, the 65, the 6. Okay. All right. That's what I get. Eric?
No, thank you for taking the time to do that on the HPs and the Windows, because to me that just kind of compartmentalized it, and so yeah, I would be fine to.
Excellent. Thank you.
Don?
Oh, let me say
I'm going to make it simple. I agree. I think just to make it more consistent, it's great to start with the 6th grade.
Excellent. Thank you. Great.
I do have one more comment though.
Okay.
And I really have to say this because it's really
Is it budget related?
It's related to because it's because if I don't say it, it's just going to bug me. We sat here when there was the discussion on when we bought those iPads for the 7th and 8th grade, and it was unanimously put to us that it was totally supported that we just had to have iPads in the middle schools. And I don't know if it's an awakening or a disillusionment. It isn't quite what, and it was staff. This was supposed to come from staff, So I guess maybe we should be this kind of goes a little bit back to your Chromebooks, to a little bit more open to maybe trying other things or trying things ahead of time, because the iPads definitely did not fit what I think the expectation of everybody felt it would at that time. Go ahead.
And that kind of plays into one of the questions that I had, because we've been learning a lot as we've gone through this process, and we've been getting input from different sources. And what it seems like we've learned is that for the younger kids, primary school, the iPads are better because there's no messing around with the logins. It's much easier for them to log in, and it's much more portable, and they're better for centers. And yet, when we get to the older grades, the argument that we had is that, well, the iPads aren't good because they're not as dependable, and the screens break easier, and you can't fix them once the screens break. So I'm curious as to where that line of demarcation is, like what's most appropriate for iPads and what's more appropriate for MacBooks. And I'm curious with Danielle, what do you say for the 4th and 5th grade level? What's most appropriate for them?
You can come up here, Danielle, please, because you really have to be heard. I'm sorry.
Well, Randy should probably come up too, because he's got all the
He
grades.
doesn't want to, but he will, right?
He's got all the grades.
Just don't go far, Bob.
Could I jump in?
You certainly may.
Thank you. So, not being here last year, but being in the district that I was in and understanding what MLTI had offered at the last refresh, you had some choices between a MacBook at zero cost to the district, iPad zero cost to the district, a Windows version or PC version, right?
Yeah, it was HP.
The HP at zero cost to the district, and then you had a MacBook Air, which came with a price tag. My understanding was it was $18 per year, correct? So
per device.
The district that I was in before, that's what I think a lot of people wrestle with, is that compared, if you're looking at a zero cost option between an iPad, which was the Mac platform, and an HP, people said, most districts said, let's go with what we know, which is an Apple-based version, because they also did not want to spend an extra $18 per year at 250 devices, which increases the price tag. And I know where that's what the district that I was in before in Sanford had the same choice. We had looked at iPads, and hindsight is 2020. But then at the time, if you're talking additional, I don't know what that amount would be, 20,000, 25,000, whatever that price tag is, that's a lot of money. So I don't disagree with you about that. But I think teachers have found many useful ways to use the iPad. But in terms of productivity, at least in the 6th, 7th, and 8th grade ages, and in terms of the high school, I think productivity is diminished. I know for me, I could not be as productive on an iPad as I can on a laptop with a keyboard. So I just wanted to add that in, that was I think a choice that many districts struggled with when that was the option.
And that's pretty on the money.
He gave me the answer before.
Danielle?
I think, back to your question, I'm not sure. I feel like we're in the age where we make decisions based on what we think is right at the time, and then we learn. Right now, our building is multi-platform. We have, all fifth have the old white MacBooks. About half and half in the fourth, we have PCs and the white $48 ones. And we have iPads in the special ed rooms a lot, and some teachers had grants and or even won them through the wellness raffle. They have their iPads they use with students. So we are multi-platform all over the place, and we even tried out a Chromebook or two. And I would say I like the flexibility that all the different things offer, and I think they all have, for web crawling around, Chromebook is great. For music class, we're using GarageBand, and we would hate to lose that. And so I don't know the answer, but we're willing to try anything you want to give us, especially next year, because those white ones are going down.
Because they have everything.
Right, and we were really, just to keep this in mind next year at this time, remember back when the board referred to, we spent that 6 hours figuring out what to do in those multi-18 meetings, and this plan for this year was to get us through, the people who still have the white MacBooks, to get us through one more year till we could buy out those $48 ones we were so excited about.
Mm-hmm.
Now that is really not an option.
You have 147 devices that are 7 years old.
Yeah, and we are using them all darn day.
And that's just Manchester.
Right. And
so I almost think the question that Jerry asked about, is this a 1-year thing? I almost think that you had to muddy the waters, but it's almost going to be, if we're talking about a replacement plan to keep everybody in machines that actually work, that's probably going to be an
maybe I could just ask, and that's more. I did miss a lot. I'm not getting the funding of this. This is my last budget year, so maybe I just don't have the budget.
She reminds us of this all the time.
Are we buying 263 devices every year? And
No.
Okay.
It's one time, 263 devices over a 4-year lease.
So why does the price change? I guess I'm confused about the.
There's a typo.
Most of the time it's the same.
But you went from 217 to 248. That's what I'm confused about.
Right. This is MLTI, and so just focusing on 7th and 8th grade for now, they're saying this is what the cost would be if the state wasn't picking it up, $217 for the first year, and part of that is defrayment, being able to sell the existing device to bring that lease payment down the first year. Then it goes back to $248 for each of the next 3 years, and that's the total cost covered by the state. If we do this for 6th grade, we pay the $217 and 3 times $248 per device for 4 years.
We pay $217.
$217 the first year and $248 for years 2 through 4 for each device. So 263 devices we'd buy for both 6th grades.
Okay, I have to wrap my head around what all these numbers mean.
Sure.
Now,
You with us?
I'm sure I could have delivered it more.
Till
I
June.
I do. Now I understand what this little, what the grid means.
Great.
Gotcha.
Thank you.
I also support the MacBook Airs, and that just makes sense. And I'm agreeing with all of you. I think that
Yeah.
you just need to look at this as being happening all the time, and then it's just like, how do you deploy these to the different places so that we have things that are working? So, I mean, I think if we had a district that essentially had the MacBook Air or the equivalent, because that obviously will change, but I think we just have to look at a $250,000 or $300,000 technology expense. You all have to. We do as a district.
Oh my God.
And I'm still paying it. I'm just still a taxpayer. I'm
That's
still
right.
living in Raymond. But I think it just has to be a part of that. And it's almost as though when we have those open the door costs that we talk about every year, that this has to possibly be one of those open the door costs that we don't even consider
I
not
agree.
being in the budget.
It's
I
like
agree.
it's like
You know, so
it's like the buses.
Right.
It's like the buses. There's
Well,
a
that with
there's
the
a
health goes up,
cycle.
those things, this is perhaps something we just have to say is an open the door cost. So I'm going to make that as one of my recommendations, because I do think that you're right. We need to have this in people's hands.
She'll
and
have
it has
more.
to be workable. And hopefully this will be the right, the right device that you'll find will really work for students. Again, it might be for K1, 2, 3. You'll do something different, but from 4 to 12, perhaps this is what we're going to be thinking about in terms of devices. So that's
Okay.
my
Thank you.
2 cents. Thank you for explaining to me now how that works. Now I do.
Okay, so we're all set for 6th grade.
Yes.
We
And
are.
this is all we're doing then. This is all we're purchasing this
For
year.
6th grade.
Right.
Well, all around for technology. Isn't it?
No,
No, we have to go through the iPad now
For
for
kindergarten.
the elementary
Okay.
elementary grades.
Right.
Okay.
There's nothing new from 2 weeks ago. There's no MLTI option for that because it's not one-to-one for the grade level, so we just have to go out and buy them with the Apple pricing I gave you 2 weeks ago. There's no
and
change.
it's still three per classroom.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, I
Right.
gave you the
That's
breakdown
fine.
on that sheet of how many get which.
Yeah. And Kyle has stepped out for a moment. Oh, I had a question for him.
I was just going to say, could you just wait a minute? He needed to take his daughter out.
I get it. I get it. So we can wait. We can definitely wait for that. But I guess I do have a question though. I know originally the plan was, okay, we were going to buy X amount of iPads and it was going to put 3 per classroom in the elementary grades, K through 5.
K through 3.
K through
here.
No, that was us.
That's on this sheet.
That's
we have
right.
K through 3.
Oh, the other sheet, yes. With the plan of buying the do we have any idea what's going to happen now that we are not going to have, these are not going to be available?
The older ones
The
we were going to
older
buy at
ones,
$28.
because the
To her
plan.
point. That's to Jerry's point, that we need a plan and it's going to be open the door.
Well, I know that, but it was in our budget. It was in his
The iPad.
plan, so I'm curious.
It
Oh, I see.
was, and Stacy removed that money
Right.
since 2 weeks ago because it's no longer a viable option.
Right.
Right. That was taken out.
And we don't really, I'll be honest with you, we don't have another $28 or $48 solution on the horizon where we're going to fill that hole.
And there's definitely no way they're going to give us anything, right?
No way.
They have said
The
you're
only
done.
devices that are available is a very small number are if you bought in for grades K through 6 or 9 through 12 during the same year that the 7-8 contract started, 2013-14 school year. At the end of their lease, those will be available, but I can't imagine that they'd be readily available because the owning district that paid for them will get first shot, and then we'd have to fight everyone else. And there wouldn't be that many of them anyway.
Okay, well, we can, all right. The iPads, because I know some people had some questions, and I'll save my question I have for Kyle till he comes up. But does anybody have any questions on the iPads for the
No, I fully support the iPads.
lower? trying to hold off.
Well, Brandy, are you?
It wouldn't matter.
No,
See,
not really, not at all.
I don't. Well, Randy really can't answer it because here's my question: is the reading program that Kyle is putting in place, the Lucy Cochran, has a writing, but it's because I looked it up. But at the end of it, they go on a computer and they take it and they type it in.
That's just an option. That's not a.
Oh, he's not. That was my question. He's not going to do that piece of it because I guess the other thing is we were well, when I talked to Bob, we were hoping that when we turned the iPads back in, we could kind of hang on to the keyboards, which we thought were kind of in storage, but come to find out that they're all out in the building, I guess. So if we're able, did you get an answer on that? You were going to check with them.
No answer yet. Still
on
waiting.
that.
So the perfect blend, and I know Kyle will speak to this for an elementary K through 2 classroom, is a blend of iPads and your laptops because they serve two different purposes.
Right.
And so if you're asking right now, I'm going down to another kindergarten class because they're sharing their next unit of study that they've just done for writing, and they're learning to develop letters, so they're handwriting all that piece out. At the end of the year, there is an option if you want to type, and I just visited a 2nd, 3rd grade classroom, and Sandy went down as well, and those students actually did type on their laptops to present to the families and community members that came in to read their writing. So it's not a mandatory part of the writing process for that program, but if it's there, it's available, it's an option. I think that would be the comfort of the teacher, but again, having both blended pieces, you could do that piece. But what is the benefit of it? If they haven't had many keyboarding experiences, then do you really want to spend all that time having them retype out? They may hate their story by the end of it after they're trying to find their letters.
Yeah. But I guess my suggestion, and it's only a suggestion, would be because I'm not sure, because I don't know how sturdy those keyboards are that came with those iPads anyway, or by the time the middle school is done with them, if there'll be any they can salvage. But it's something to give some thought to if you get iPads for for the 2nd and 3rd graders or 3rd and 4th graders that you might. It's a good fundraiser.
And I think it's a good thing to come back to staff as well.
Yeah.
Do you find the need to have a keypad with the iPad? Is that what you're using that piece for?
Yeah.
So.
Because initially, I remember when it went to the middle school, it was like, oh, nobody wants them. Nobody cares about them. But that's why we thought they were all kind of all sitting with his guys, and he found out, oh no, they're gone. They look for them. They're all looking for them because they want the keypad. So to use. But anyway, we're all set.
All right.
Did you want to spot?
I don't need now. I don't need to ask him now.
All set with the technology part?
So does anybody else have anything on the iPads before we? Oh, go ahead, Jen.
Okay. I'm just confused. Since we lost the option, is that what I heard? That we can't buy them at the price we originally budgeted to buy them at?
There was 2 initiatives. There was buy new ones at roughly 3 per classroom, and we're still planning on doing that. And then we were going to get hundreds of them for $28 a piece, but that has gone by the wayside. They're not available because of this early buyout of the contract.
So the 3 new per classroom is in the current budget that we have in front of us. Okay.
All right, Don, I have a question for you. I'm looking at the white page on the technology director it's version 3, and I mean you don't have to look at it specifically, but the MacBook Air purchase was built into the budget with a per unit cost of $1,340, and what we're looking at tonight is $217, $248, $248, $248, which is considerably less than that. Has that been adjusted in version 5?
That was my mistake on the early version where we had it come in at $1,300, and that was my mistake. But the pricing I gave you tonight is correct.
In the budget, or should I be checking?
Yeah.
It's in the pink.
It's in the pink.
I believe so, and I'll verify.
Because the pink version 5 shows like a $9,000 difference from version 3. 22 of 82. It shows version 5, 4th line from the bottom, least purchase computers and related equipment of $554,827, which is only about $9,000 less than what it showed on the pink page in version 3, which was $563,000. So it's come down $9,000, but it seems like it might come down more. Although we've got 15 more units than we originally had.
The reason it didn't come down the full sum of money is because it's over a 5-year payment plan. So 5 times 8 is roughly the 40,000 he's referring to.
Oh, I thought it was a 4-year. Is it a 4-year?
When we get the MacBook Airs through Milty, it's a 4-year. But if we buy iPads ourselves, we can do it 4-year, 5-year. We're going to get our own financing.
But yeah, just for the MacBook Air, that was originally $1,340 cost, and it sounds like it's going to be under $1,000.
I don't know if I can quickly verify that. Let me, give me a moment to look that through, or if not, at least tomorrow I can
just
double check that.
All right, thanks.
Thank you. Yeah. I'll leave these out.
Are we all set?
Great. Thank you all for your time.
It
Appreciate it.
looks like we are. And I don't think there were any other burning issues. Now, Dawn.
Yes. I could outline for the public what has changed since the last meeting, if that's helpful.
Yes.
But now I have to find my. Let me just flip my page. I'll be right with you.
Yeah. Dawn.
Yes.
All right. I think the board is pretty, at this point, not to the end yet, is kind of comfortable. If the next item would be the vote on the budget, are you going to have a number for us?
Yes, and you would be able to make an amendment to that next week in your public hearing,
Oh, okay.
if for some reason there's an error from the
Okay.
technology.
Oh, okay.
Okay, I don't
Okay,
think that
that's-
there is.
was my question.
So for the public, because you folks have received lots of information, at the last meeting, the version 4 budget was, I'm going to use rough numbers for the public, $43.7 million, which was a 3.93% increase. And since that time, and listening to the board, we've made some changes relative to some things that we didn't even talk about, and things that came to pass that we were fortunate to learn in time, which was mainly the MEA Benefit Trust Blue Cross Blue Shield through Anthem. For our district, we were budgeting 9% because that was the high band that could have accrued to the district, and as it turned out, there was literally no increase in the premiums. So part of the savings, the biggest part of the savings clearly was that $444,000. So from the last meeting to this meeting, the budget was able to be reduced by the $444,000. Additionally, the administrative team did meet last Friday and came up with some additional savings. Maintenance and operation, roughly $37,000. My operating budget area, through looking at the private school tuition, we reduced that down by about $11,000. The reduced screen size on the MacBook, that's what the answer is on that, Pete, now that I'm looking at that. That's the reduced screen size on that device, but I still will double check that. And then the summer anytime learning experience at the high school was reduced. That was $10,000. And of course the position that you folks have been talking about tonight. So at this point in time, the version 5 revised stands at $43.08 million, which is just about, well, it is $1 million. It's a little over $1 million increase at 2.45% above the current operating budget. In terms of taxation, we want to make sure that we're transparent about that. That doesn't translate exactly to that kind of an increase. And the average increase, well, I'll be more specific. The increase in Raymond is 4.1%, and it's 4.3% in Wyndham. The impact of that on a house in Wyndham valued at $250,000 would be $102, and a $250,000 home in Raymond would be $87 annually. So that's the major changes since the last time that you folks met.
Jerry.
Question. On this explaining your budget page, it has health insurance at 0% increase, but there is an $87,000 increase. Is that because of added personnel?
There's an increase. Let me just take
Yeah.
one look.
Yeah, I had
Thank
that
you.
same question. I assume that's what it is.
Yeah,
just more
I
people
just-
being covered.
Yes,
More people
yes, that's
being-
correct.
It's people,
Yes.
not because, okay.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yep. Thank you. Both.
And just so it's clear, there's a 2.45% increase in expenses, but the impact to taxes is larger because there's not as much revenue coming in from the state. Is that
That's correct. Thank you for that. So we're going to be receiving about $375,000 less in state allocation than we have in the current operating budget. So we're at about, I'm using again rough numbers for the public, $15 million, which has not really changed. Well, it's gone down. It's gone down $375,000 from this year.
Okay. Is everybody feeling comfy?
I do have another question. I'm comfortable, yes. The PERS, that is coming out of our budget this year. Other years, the state's made it back up again. Is that historically the main PERS?
Yes, that is something that we have to budget for. The state does provide our percent shares. You know, we're about a 41% receiver, but we do have to budget that sum of money. So the high side is that you have to budget for it. Part of the $15 million is money that's accruing to us as a result of that number.
Right.
Yeah.
But interestingly, we still have to budget $732,000, but we're getting $375,000 less in state subsidy,
Right,
which is
and-
supposed to sort of take care of that, but it doesn't.
No, not at all.
So it's real dollars that we
It's
have to pay out. We're not getting any sort of reimbursement from the state.
That is a direct pass-through from the state to the locals.
And isn't that higher in other years? Haven't we budgeted around $500,000? Seems like that's up
It went up in the
quite a bit.
20% range this year.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
Because the state raised the amount
No,
they were
it's-
expecting the town to.
I'm not gonna
RSU?
have the exact terminology that they use, but it's the normal cost of the increase in the cost for what it takes to make sure that there's enough money in the fund for specifically the employees in this school system. So they just adjust it based on the actuarial studies that they do
For each district.
for each specific district.
So
No,
next year it might be less.
um,
Probably not.
Probably not.
Okay. Okay.
Good try, Jerry.
I just thought I'd try to help you guys out.
Yeah.
All right. But that is a new cost.
It is. Thank you. Yeah. That's,
So if you look at that, difference of $1 million, 1.2, what we increased, that's been a huge hit to our
0.75%.
our
Right.
budgets. So I just want the public to know it's the state imposed cost that we are now absorbing that we didn't before. Okay. I'm
Alrighty.
comfortable.
Okay.
I'm ready to vote.
All right. So saying that, first off, before we go on to the next item, which will be for the vote, just so everybody's aware, we do not have a meeting scheduled for next week. The meeting the week after that is a workshop, but if there is a change in the budget, it's adequate time to do it that week. John?
I
Would that be
believe
too
so.
late?
You're trying
That's
to
the
back,
27th.
the dates from the raise your hand budget meeting. I think there should be sufficient time. I believe there is.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, great. All right, just so everybody is aware of that. I'll speak for myself and hopefully, and I'm sure the board, that I'd like to thank all the cost center presenters and the administrators and staff and the staff at central office for all of the great work that they have done. And I know there have been exceptions that have been made and people have given things up. And thank you very much to help us bring in a budget that hopefully will be viewed by the residents of both communities as being very fiscally responsible. We all love our children. We love our students. We want to give them the best education that we possibly can. And there are only so many places that we can cut back on and still be able to do that. So I want to thank everybody for all the work that they've done. And like I said, I'm sure I speak for the rest of the board. We're very appreciative, so thank you. Okay, so moving on. The next item on the agenda is I will accept a motion to approve the 2016-17 budget.
Do we have an amount?
Yes, the amount is this is the amount, right, Don?
No,
40?
in the budget.
No, that's wrong.
I can, somebody could pencil in if they would like,
Yes.
43,083,269.34. 43,083,269.34.
Okay, whoever wants to read.
I make a motion to approve the RSU 14 Wyndham Raymond School District budget for 2016 to 17 is proposed in the amount of $43,083,269.34.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? Any comments from the public? Seeing none. Any comments from the board? Okay, all those in favor of the budget as proposed? It is unanimous. Again, thank you all for all your hard work. Yeah. Okay, next on the agenda is our the presentation. You want a break?
I'll take 5 minutes.
Okay, someone needs a 5 minute. We'll take a 5 minute break and we'll be back.
Stay for the calendar.
Okay, welcome back. We are back from recess, and now we will have our curriculum director, Christine Hessler, present our 2016-17 calendar.
Good evening. I believe Terry sent all of you a calendar. I have to say it is quite boring this year because it is exactly the same, follows the same pattern as we had last year. Just a review for the public because it always seems to ask questions of why are we starting on certain days, why are we having certain days off. For community to remember that based on the calendar law that was enacted a few years ago, we are required to align our calendar with the other sending districts of where we send our vocational students. So for us, it's the Westbrook Vocational Center. So we work with the schools in the Sebago Alliance, which is Gorham, Scarborough, Westbrook, Bonnie Eagle, and ourselves, and we come up with a calendar. The key for us is to not have more than 5 dissimilar days, so that students who go to the center are there at the same times. And so we work very hard because there are some pieces that people have traditionally had off, and we've tried to honor cultural differences in each of the communities, and it's gotten very easy over the years, and we feel even with our in-service days, we have some aligned so that we have the ability to do some cross professional development across high schools or middle schools, and we have that same day available. We also are very aware of some patterns that are coming up. For example, state testing. So we didn't want to have a day off during that window, even though that seems to be a moving target. And also with lots of state conferences, at the end of October, we moved the in-service day up to earlier in October, and that seemed to work really well this year when we had some feedback from staff. So I can certainly answer any questions. This year, obviously, we have a presidential election, and so you will notice that on the November voting day that our high school will be closed on that day to ensure voters have an opportunity to vote and in order for us to have our students safe. With that many people coming in and out. And so what we've done, which we've done in the past, is the high school staff will come for the morning for professional development, and the other half of that day they will make up near the end of the year when we have students with finals. We did that also, and Chris Howell is here to answer any questions, and that seemed to be very easy flow for people. The rest of the RSU will be in session on that day. It'll just be our high school students. So, yes.
Actually, I think the calendar's great. I can remember a few years back, I know there were a lot of discussion because there were issues at the elementary grades because some of the holidays ran together. So like around between Christmas and New Year's, I think it was that it became like 2 weeks.
Yeah, the way the calendar falls.
Right.
Yeah.
A lot of the kids were had lost some of their stuff. So
Right.
I mean, I think it looks great. And
I am pleased, actually, as a mom, that we have the Friday before Christmas off, the 23rd, and not going that full day, and then the next day is Christmas Eve. I think that that's another piece that, we have staff and we are very community oriented, and I think the breaks that we put in and when we come back help to ensure good transitions back with our students and our staff.
And the other thing too is we came to this pretty quickly. And I only say that because I go to Westbrook and I also go to Paths.
Right.
Paths is still not fighting, but they're still having a problem trying to get all of the schools, in sync so that they meet. And I think every year they've asked for an exception.
They have.
For it,
Yeah.
So actually, this is actually very, very good. So thank you to everybody. I'm not sure who it was, but thank you to everybody who worked on it. Does anybody else have comments, questions? Nope. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. So if we could have.
Oh, just have one question.
Yes.
I'm sorry to do it late. 9/6, it looks like 9/6 is listed as a first day, but it doesn't. Maybe I don't see whose first day that is, or maybe that shouldn't be yellow.
That should not be yellow. Thank you, Jennifer.
Aye.
I do want to point out that Mr. Prince did put an RSU 14 bus on the bottom of the calendar. It's not a cartoon bus.
I know, that's pretty cool.
It was not a 1950 bus.
But that was pretty cool, though.
I think you two can find out what bus. Maybe we could alternate years.
But anyway, it's very nice.
Jennifer, I will have Terry take the yellow off, and we will get that on there. So thank you.
Great. Thank you. I know. So if we could have a motion to approve the calendar.
I move to approve the 2016-2017 calendar.
Second. We have a motion and a second. Any questions from the public? Seeing none, I will close public on the board. Comments? Okay, all those in favor? It is unanimous. Calendar is approved. Okay, we will now have report of the secretary.
I move to approve the minutes of March 2nd, 2016 meeting.
Second.
Okay, any comments, questions? Okay.
One comment. The March 2nd meeting is not on the website. Was that one that was not originally scheduled? I checked today. It's not. There's no agenda. That date's not even on there.
Is that the first one? Is that the first one? I mean Wednesday. Should be there.
I don't know. Can you have?
I'll check on
that. Okay. Okay, thank you. Good catch. Okay, all those in favor? Are there any abstentions? By the way, Robert's rules says that you can vote if you are absent. Yes, you did. That's why I'm bringing it up. Because an abstention is just a no vote in reality. Sounds silly, so.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
I move to approve the minutes of the March 9th, 2016 meeting.
Second. We have a motion and a second. Any comments from the public? Seeing none. Comments, questions from the board? Nope. All those in favor? It is unanimous.
I move to approve the minutes of the March 16th meeting.
Second.
I have a motion and I have a second. Any comments from the public? Seeing none. Comments, questions from the board? Seeing none. All those in favor? It is unanimous.
I move to approve the minutes of the March 23rd, 2016 meeting.
Second. I have a motion and a second. Comments from the public? Comments from the board? All those in favor? It is unanimous.
And I move to approve the minutes of the March 30th, 2016 meeting.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any comments from the public? Seeing none. Any comments from the board? None. All those in favor? It is unanimous. Thank you all very much. Okay, we should be able to do this really quick. Committee reports. Anything on the finance committee?
No, no, not recently.
Okay.
My last update was the last update.
Facilities?
Facilities committee met this evening, and we worked on the agenda for the meeting that we're holding on April 27th regarding the middle school initiative. And that was that. Can I just keep going with policy?
Sure.
Policy, we're meeting on Friday to review the facilities use. We have medical marijuana scheduled for the end of this month. And that's it.
Okay, great. Okay, rather than going through all of them, is there any other committees that have met recently? In budget, I know. So. All right. And of course, the pre-K we have shelved. It is the table temporarily.
Could I just say that
Yes.
I really appreciate the committee's work this year. It was a great group. They really worked hard. They met every month, and we'll make sure to keep all the documentation for next year. I'm hoping that at some point in time we can really have a pre-K program within the district. And this was not the year to do it, but maybe next year it could be looked at carefully and built into the budget. Thank you.
Do you have anything else?
The other thing I'd just like to say, the strategic plan, we are pretty well completed with that. It's been a year-long event. The write-in team, Kate Brooks is a member of that team, met this week, and we just took another look at it just to clean it up. So it's going to be typed up, and I will present it to you probably through a PowerPoint to explain the process and how we developed it. And it's the most important work that we do. It drives the teaching and learning within this organization, and I'm just really excited to work with the administrative team and to work with the board and to work with the staff as we begin next fall to lift this new strategic plan. And it's really a wonderful plan because we got a lot of input from the public. We had over 600 responses to the surveys. And I can tell you that the committee really looked at what the voices had to say. And from there, they developed the themes, developed the goals, and now we've developed an action plan. And as you know, each year, the administrative team, throughout the year, they develop a blueprint to really look at the strategic plan and precisely figure out what's the work going to be for the 12 months of that year. And so we've got more work to do with the blueprint, but we're just really excited to have this plan almost finished. And again, I just wanted to mention that because there was a bunch of good people that worked on that from the community, and I'll make sure to acknowledge those people when I present the PowerPoint. Thank you.
Good. Thank you. Okay, board roundtable. Sierra.
So
I don't even have mine on.
Oops. Spring sports just started, and all the teams look really, really good. I know softball is actually going to Florida to train over April break. Yeah.
Whoa.
The chamber singers are touring. They start next week. They start, and they're going to sing at Carnegie Hall, so that's pretty exciting. And then just yesterday we had a band concert, but with multiple schools in the area. I know Gray New Gloucester came, and Wyndham Christian came, and I think there was one more.
Cool.
So
that's great. That is excellent.
The lunch.
Luncheon?
Are we doing a luncheon?
There's one more luncheon, right?
yeah, I don't think it's this month though.
I think it's in
Okay.
May.
Yeah.
Okay,
in May.
good.
We have April break is the thing.
Right.
Oh, perfect. Right.
Okay, great. Jen?
Nothing.
I don't know anything.
Eric.
Thank you. I just want to give a shout out to a sixth grader who his name is Matthew Fox, who won the geography bee here at the middle school, and went and took I guess a test with National Geographic and passed that and went on to the States and finished in the top 40%. And I've known him since he's 4, so if you do get a chance to watch this, don't get too embarrassed. But I watched him grow, and he's a sharp young man, and his desire is to go on and actually win this the next couple of years. So.
Good for him.
So good job, Matthew.
Dawn?
I got a chance to go to Manchester School today to watch my daughter. She's in 5th grade, and a bunch of other students do an absolute phenomenal job on their social studies project. And so they learned about Plymouth Rock and some other places, and they put together beautiful forts and projects, and then they presented, and some did a poem, some did games, some did puppet shows. My daughter was in a puppet show, but I thought the teachers did a wonderful job. And the audience, all parents came, grandparents, and they sat us right down, and it just ran on time and everything. And it was fantastic. And I thought, and I even spoke to some of the teachers that, it would be good if we could take a handful or 1 or 2 presentations and have them present to the board because they did so well. So I was very impressed.
Cool.
Thanks.
I'll look into that.
Yeah. Sandy, you got anything? You have anything more?
I'm all set.
Dawn?
Well, actually, Mr. Hensler, I think you may be correct. So I just need some clarification. I'm sorry to take us back
That's
to
okay.
the budget, but the pricing that Mr. Hickey produced tonight for that machine is what? I just want to make sure
So what he produced tonight was a 4-year lease through the MLTI at 217 the first year, 248, 248, 248, which brings us 900 and some odd dollars, as opposed to the original budget, which was $1,340 per unit. So on a per unit cost, that's, we're looking at close to $400 per unit. That in the original presentation was 250 units. I think you bumped that up to 265.
That's correct, right.
So there should be some savings, I would think.
I think you're correct, but I do think we have time, so if I can have the gift of that to make sure. But that would add up, so we'll take a look at that. Thank you.
I'd like to unvote. No.
Yeah. There you go.
So we'll plan on that for the 27th. And
Adjust the figure.
yeah,
If it needs to be
if it needs to be adjusted,
We can do it that night.
we can do it that night prior to the workshop. Okay.
Thank you. Sorry
Okay.
about that.
Motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor? It is unanimous. We are adjourned. Thank you very much.